Is it to transfer appropriations from one account to the other? I've been doing that at school too.
It's just the,
I know what you're talking
resolution.
about. Yep, we have a resolution like that in there. Going out on the. Thank goodness I'm on the school board, where I do the school work.
That's it.
Thank you.
I've got 4 of the comments said she thought she was. Please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for attending the Edinburgh Town Council meeting, Monday, December 8th, 2025. Do a roll call. Mr. Bryan is not here. Ms. Sweet.
Here.
Ms. Buck is not currently here. Ms. Rooks.
Here.
All right, also with us, well, town manager's in here running around somewhere. And Destin Huddleston, town attorney, and Rhonda Barrett, clerk treasurer. The minutes of council meeting November 24th, 2025, and executive meeting November 24th, 2025.
We can go ahead and do these without the other members being here, right? We can go ahead and pass them then sign them later.
Yeah, because everybody was here.
They weren't here.
Yeah, everybody was here. so.
Sherry, you have any questions?
No, I did not hear very good notes this time, I thought.
I just want to make note to public forum that I thought that Emily Cravens has been doing the minutes with Rhonda's guidance, and I just wanted to state publicly that I thought she did a great job. This was a long one and had a lot of intricate things in it. I thought she did a great job. So, but I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the council meeting minutes of November 24th, the regular meeting, November 24th, 25, and executive meeting, 2024, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, claims, Ms. Barrett.
In your packets, you received a claim docket in the amount of $770,893.20. All claims have been reviewed and signed.
I have no questions this time.
I don't either.
I make a motion to approve the claims for the November 24th docket.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Open up for the public hearing for the additional appropriation now. Alrighty, please state your name and your address for the record. Okay, being there are none, looks like we'll close that. Okay, we're on to resolution 2025-15, additional appropriations.
Okay, the public hearing that we just had was for additional appropriations. Those appropriations are for $73,000 in the general fund, $1,000 in the K-9 NRO fund, $15,500 in the fire and rescue donation fund, and $54,000 in the NRO downtown plaza fund. For the general fund, we just were a couple accounts that we under budgeted for this year. And for the other NRO funds, where we receive those donations, we just need appropriations to spend those donations for the things related to what those donations were received for. So the resolution is ready for approval if you guys are okay with it.
I have no question. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-15, additional appropriation as presented by Mrs. Barrett.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ordinance 2025-20, amending salary ordinance, first reading, Ms. Barrett.
All right, in your packet, you received the first reading of this ordinance, which includes the increase for payrolls for 2026, as well as on the caps. Typically, the caps cover like a 5-year period, and they've gotten kind of behind. So when I was working on the increases, those caps have been raised to cover any increases for the next up through 2028. So this is a first reading. So if there's anything on there that if you see any errors or if there are any adjustments that you need,
You
would
to
have
let
made,
members that are
then,
here to speak
yeah.
on it.
yeah, just let me know and we can get those changed before the next meeting.
All right, ordinance 2025-21, transfer of appropriations, again, first reading. Rhonda.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The transfer appropriations, this is just a first reading, where we have to transfer, sometimes when some funds are short, we transfer from other funds, other line items, just to cover shortages on appropriations. And I'm sorry, I did send you guys the wrong thing. Sorry about that. What John just got, I did wrong. So this is just a first reading. We will have the completed document at the next meeting.
All right, the interlocal agreement between the town of Edinburgh and Blue River Township concerning emergency services, Mr. Huddleston.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next three items are all related to an agreement that the town and Blue River Township have come to terms on, where the town would provide primary ambulatory services for all Blue River Township and backup standby fire services supporting Amity. In consideration of that, the Blue River Township would pay the town $300,000. And this interlocal agreement memorializes that. Later on, and you'll see that part of those, or that those funds, the $300,000 is going to go towards purchasing a new ambulance to provide this service. So first is you have to approve the interlocal agreement that frames all this. It would be signed by Blue River Township to make it effective. So if you approve it, I would make it subject to Blue River's acceptance.
So that would be resolution 2025-16, correct?
You approve the agreement separately. That's the item right now. And then next we'll go to the resolution, which also approve. It is redundant, but the resolution is something we need to do since it's an interlocal agreement.
And you suggested with the approval subject to Blue River Township's
Approve.
approval as well?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. Any questions? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement between the town of Edinburgh and Blue River Township concerning emergency services, subject to Blue River Township's approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on to resolution 2025-16, which is approving the interlocal agreement between town of Edinburgh and Blue River Township concerning emergency services.
It's a bit redundant, but it's an interlocal agreement, so it requires a resolution. The resolution attaches the agreement you just approved.
Motion to approve resolution number 2025-16 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and looks like finally here, it's resolution 2025-17, authorizing special purchase of an ambulance for the Edinburgh Fire Department. Again, Mr. Huddleston.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you recall, on the bidding procedure, since this ambulance would be over $300,000, it would require sealed bid advertising. However, and we've done this in the past on equipment, Indiana code allows you to do a different process, characterizing as a special purchase, because certain opportunities the town have to get it at a discounted price for municipalities. So that's what this resolution does. It captures that and shows the discount. Chief provided me the information on quote for the new ambulance, and it is discounted per source as we used before. So to memorialize that, you have to pass this resolution to show that you're doing a different kind of procedure other than a regular required bid.
I make a motion to pass resolution 2025-17, authorizing special purchase of ambulance for the Edinburgh Fire Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Ms. Barrett, the fire department donation.
Yes, the fire department received a donation from Johnson County Community Foundation from the Johnson County REMC Operation Roundup. in the amount of $5,000 to be used for ambulance equipment. So it just needs approval to accept that donation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now let's do the K-9 fund donation, Ms. Barrett.
K-9 Fund, they received a donation from First Financial Bank in the amount of $2,276 for the K-9 Fund. Same thing, just need approval to accept that donation.
$2,276.
Uh-huh.
Motion to approve the K-9 fund donation in the amount of $2,276 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Add to that, I have the money from the prior of the Shell gas station that wishes to donate $1,500 to the K-9 as well. So I will get that to, he gave that to us to give the chief. So we will,
Okay. Do we want to go ahead and,
should we do that? Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
you said how much,
It's
1,500?
1,500, and I will get that to chief ASAP. Okay, Wessler invoice number 48444 for the water treatment plant, Ms. Barrett.
Yes, there's an invoice from Wessler in the amount of $5,469 for the water treatment plant. Bill has reviewed and has approved this invoice, so it needs approval for payment and approval for somebody to sign on the payment.
Okay. Motion to approve the Western invoice number 48444 for the water treatment plant in the amount of $5,469.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion for Council President Ryan Fishfield to sign off on the Western invoice number 48444 in the amount of $5,469.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Rhonda, again, it's the HEA 1392 FIT and CVET distribution.
Yes, and some of all of the changes July 1st, they changed how the distribution of these funds are to be receipted in. Previously, the county split it up based on our levy allocations. Now, the council has the option to receipt it in however they wish. If you wanted it all to go to general fund, you could do that. I would propose that we just split it like it always has been. I looked at the first one we received this year, and I know the percentages breakdowns, but if you guys prefer it all go in one account, that's up to you. It's about $20,000 to $25,000 a year. It's not a large amount, but there's like 49% to the general fund, 20% to NVH, 23% park, 7% for the bond fund, and 1% to CCDF. And so we can continue to just receipt it in with those percentages, or if you want to do 100%, just general fund, that's up to the council, but it does have to be decided in a meeting. We could write up a resolution to be approved later, or, or it can just, as long as it's noted in the minutes.
I don't see any reason why we need to change what it currently is.
I agree.
Can we make a motion? to
Yeah,
do
just
that
motion to distribute it as
as
percentage-wise
Yeah.
previously. Yeah,
So we-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Okay, John, Electrocom invoices, there's a lot of letters and numbers there. There's two of them. 2507774B and 2508255.
Yeah, that's, you guys have in front of you two invoices for Electricom that did the underground utility work on 252. They have pretty much finished up and done. There was some change orders along the way that had to be done that Stephen approved. That added up to $32,748.83. Going over the original contract price, that much. The two bills are $80,000, $616.62. We still have the retained percentage of $79,209.10. I'd like approval to pay the $80,616.62. All their work is done. The state has approved their bores under 252. They're not quite as deep as they're supposed to be. I'm waiting on a contractor engineer to accept the bores at the depth they're at before I would recommend releasing the retained funds.
She wants to go ahead and approve to pay them, but you're not gonna release it.
No, we're gonna pay them the 80,000.
You pay the 80,000.
Yeah, and they always held so much back.
Oh, okay, the retaining.
Yes, they retained $79,209. Once the engineer for the contractor approves the depth, I'd be willing to release it, because if we release it now, they come back later next year and say, hey, you can take them deeper, we're gonna be stuck with it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment to Electricon Invoices for $80,606.62.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we get a motion for signature?
Make a motion for Ryan Pierce, the president, to sign off on these two invoices.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The, Mitchell, are you? Okay. Baker Tilly wastewater and stormwater rate studies and water and sewer capacity.
Good evening. My name is Mitchell Eschweiler. I'm with Baker Tilly. I have 3 different reports that I believe are in your packets. Can you go through these? The first one I'm going to talk about is the capacity fee calculations for both the water and sewage works. So I'm going to start, just a background on this report. We were asked to look at developing new capacity fees for both water and sewage works. Currently, the town is not billing this rate to new development. So this would really be a rate that new development would pay for both sewer and water as they come onto your system. The reason being is that your existing customers have been paying their bills. There's been debt issued in the past, all to fund the current infrastructure that's serving your customers. One of the things you see as you expand your services for both water and sewer is the need to do capital improvements. But then the thought is, who should really be paying for that growth? Capacity fees are a way that you can collect revenue from new customers when they hook on. So if you were to go build a new home, this would be built into the price that the developer pays and ultimately passes on to the homeowner. Now for the water and sewer utility, you receive that fee set aside in the fund, and when you have future capacity related projects, so anything that would be needed to expand services to these customers, you would use that money to try to make it so your existing customers are not paying or having the burden of that future growth. If you want to start on page 2 of that report, page 2 is the calculation for the sewage works. There's a couple different methods to go about calculating capacity fees. At the top there, we have the equity buy-in method. What this calculation is doing is looking at the existing assets on your system, and then we're backing out any contributions or grants that were received by the sewage works, and then dividing that by the number of equivalent dwelling units. One way to think about that is often an equivalent dwelling unit is one residential home, and then as you get larger commercial or industrial users, their ADUs are really based on their flow that they would add to the system. So for the sewage works, your total capital assets at the end of 2024 was $9,351,000. Looking back at the historical financial statements of the sewage works, you had received either contributions or grants of about $912,000. So we backed that out, which gives you a net amount of $8,439,000. And the total EDUs on the system at the end of 24 were 2,550. So you could calculate a maximum capacity fee under the equity buying method of $3,309. So that's one thing I do want to stress is what this calculation is doing is calculating a maximum. You certainly do not have to go and adopt a maximum, and you'll see I have a graph later on showing communities for both water and sewer where their current rate's at. So one thing you do want to consider when you're looking at this is whatever the ultimate rate is, you don't want it to be at a level that's so high that you're going to deter that growth from coming to the town. So most places when we do this calculation, it is kind of an exercise of what could we charge and what do we want to charge to continue to have growth and not deter people from coming to the town. The next is the incremental cost, and this is looking at future projects that you would need to serve new customers. We did receive a couple projects here, one expanding the collection system and two expanding the wastewater treatment plant. The total cost there was $6,546,000. This would add about 1.5 million gallons. So we calculate a cost per gallon of $4.36. We then use IDEM standard residential flow, which is 310 gallons per day. And we would come up with a charge of $1,353. With both of these two methods, you can also do a hybrid approach, taking a look at both historical and future costs for the system and add them together. If you were to add these two approaches together under a hybrid approach, the maximum you could charge there at the bottom would be $4,662, or just rounding down $4,600. So that would be the maximum for the sewage works that you would want to look at as far as capacity fee. Page 3 then looks at the same calculations, but for the water utility. At the top then, looking at the equity buying method, capital assets were a little over 11.4 million. We back out grants and contributions received by the water utility of a little over 700,000. And then for the water utility, you also have outstanding debt. As of the end of 2024, that was 7,134,000. That also gets backed out in the calculation. So your subtotal there would be just under $3.6 million. Again, dividing by the total EDUs on your system, 2,550. We'd come up with a maximum for the existing system of $1,410. Using the incremental cost method, the project identified here was the addition of an elevated water storage tank. The estimated cost there was $5,383,000. That would be adding 600,000 gallons to the system. So we'd come down to a cost of $9 per gallon. Again, taking that by the 310 gallons for the average user. We would have a calculated amount of 2,790. Adding these two methods together, then your maximum would be $4,200 for capacity. Page 4 is just showing you the calculation of how we're getting your EDUs on your system. We look at each of your customers broken down by meter size and then take them by a ratio to a 5/8 inch meter. You can see there in the far right column how we came up with that calculation and for the existing system of 2,550. The next two pages, just wanted to show some comparable communities here that do have existing capacity fees. Not everyone has these charges. When you look at this, you'll notice a lot of these are the donut communities around Indianapolis who have seen growth or are starting to see growth. They have adopted these charges and are currently billing for them. You can see there on the low end, Greensburg, a little farther out, they charge $900. On the high end, we have West Central Conservancy District, just under $5,100. So then looking at the water utility compared to the sewer, you can see here is a little bit less than what most communities are charging. On the low end, this is Indiana American serving Noblesville, $528. And on the high end, we see Lebanon that's charging $4,600 currently for their water capacity. So really, if the town were to want to consider implementing either water, sewer, or both, I think at that point, the conversation becomes at what level are you comfortable with adding on to that new development and making sure that you're continuing to see the development you want to see and not deterring some of that new customer growth on your system. And I'll pause there before I move to the next
I
report.
have a question.
Yes.
So it looks like on the sewage that we're pretty in line.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the water, suddenly we are a lot higher.
This is just your calculated amount. You don't have to charge that. Most likely what has probably happened is a lot of these communities will do the similar calculation. They'll look at their neighboring communities and say, we don't want to be higher than so-and-so. So they will pick something around that area. So that's probably why you're seeing on both these graphs, a lot of these rates coming in pretty similar. If we were to look at their individual calculations, like for water, you're probably seeing a much higher amount they could justify, but they know if, for example, if I'm Fishers and I know Carmel's charging 1,000, I'm competing with them for growth, so I don't want to be higher than them, or I will set it a little bit lower or a little bit higher. So that's kind of what we see as these calculations start to pop up.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Michelle?
The next thing I'll talk about then is the stormwater utility rate study. So this is looking at the stormwater rate study that we were asked to prepare. Really, you'll see as we go through this report, the biggest driver of the proposed increase in stormwater is capital improvements. Just looking back historically at the financial statements here for the stormwater utility, the cash balances over the last couple of years have been relatively stable. We do typically see, and you'll see this when we look at the operations and maintenance of the stormwater utility, really the use of cash in this utility is more for capital improvements or larger repairs. So you see at the end of 2021 here on page 2, the cash balance at the end of 2021 was about $286,000. In 2022, we see that balance drop down to a little over $57,000. So likely in between that period, you had some sort of larger capital need of the stormwater utility and spent down some of those funds. So unlike what we see a lot of times with the water and sewer utilities, this fund is more you build up money and then spend it down on projects because you really don't have much that's being paid out of here for operations. Our test year period here is the 12 months ended June 30, 2024. At the end of that period, the stormwater utility had a little over $166,000. I'm going to move ahead here. On page 4, this is showing you your current stormwater rate compared to some other communities. Not everyone charges a separate stormwater fee. Some communities have it built into their sewer rates. It's really if they determine if they're going to segregate that out and track their operation and maintenance separately. So we did pull some of communities here in Indiana that do charge a separate stormwater utility rate. You can see there at the far left, Edinburgh's currently charging $3 per EDU or per residential customer. Pretty common that we see is really anywhere under $10 is kind of the average that we see for stormwater rates. As I noted earlier, really the driver for the stormwater utility here is the proposed capital improvement. And it's identified here as the stormwater phase 2 Memorial Drive. And the estimated cost that we were provided as we went through and looked at the stormwater utility was a cost of $3 million. So in this report, we've shown a couple different alternatives of how you could go about funding a $3 million project. At the top there, the first alternative is what if you did this over a 5-year period? You would design rates to be able to generate an additional $600,000 per year and then do that project with the built up of cash over time. The second alternative is instead of doing it over a 5-year period, you would set rates to be able to generate $1 million and you'd be able to do those projects over a 3-year period. So when I go back to the revenue requirements, we'll have an alternative looking at a 5-year plan. a 3-year plan. And then the last alternative is, instead of doing it with cash on hand, what if you looked at doing a financing over a 20-year period? The assumptions we have there is you go out, issue debt, 20 years, using an interest rate of 4.5%. So I will move the revenue. Well, first, before I get there, we do have on page 7, looking at estimated future operation and maintenance costs. You can see there in the first column for our test year period, for operation and maintenance expenses, the stormwater utility only spent $7,323. We normalize this amount. As I said, when we looked at the stormwater utility, there's a lot of fluctuations in your cost depending on if you did have some of those repairs. So we wanted to do what would be a more normal year look like. So you can see there with contractual services, we took a 3-year average. You were spending about $45,000 over a 3-year period on some of those contractual services items. So we normalized operation and maintenance expenses to the $45,000. And then the materials and supplies was a little over $3,000. So on average, in your user rates, we're building in operation and maintenance of just under $50,000 that you would spend on some of these items. On page 9, then, this is the revenue requirements. We're looking at the rates that would be needed to support both the operations and paying for the capital improvement that was noted on the previous page. The first column is looking at cash funding that project over that 5-year period. So first, we have that $50,000 that you would build up in your rates for the contractual services and materials and supplies that the stormwater is spending. And then we have $600,000 that'd be generated for capital improvements, and that would allow you to do that project over a 5-year period. Overall, under that alternative, you would need just under $650,000 being generated from stormwater fees. Currently, the stormwater utility generates $151,000 in fees, so you would have a gap there of just under $500,000, and that would require an increase of $9.84, leaving an average stormwater bill for one EDU of $12.84. The second alternative, instead of doing it over 5 years, we would be funding and completing that project over 3 years. The one change here is instead of $600,000 for annual cash for this project, we'd be generating $1 million through the stormwater fee. So overall net revenue requirements, just under $1,050,000. And again, with the stormwater currently generating just over $150,000, the gap there is just under $900,000. That would be an increase of $17.76, or a fee per EDU of $20.76. And then the last alternative is, instead of doing this with cash on hand, what if we look at doing a financing and spreading that cost over 20 years? Again, $50,000 for operation and maintenance. Assuming a bond issue for 20 years at 4.5%, we would have annual debt service of about $231,000. You would need to fund up a debt service reserve over a 5-year period. That'd be about $46,000 for the first 5 years. And then we have an ongoing allowance for replacements and improvements of just under $70,000, which could be used for future projects. Under that alternative, the total revenue requirements would be just under $400,000. Again, current stormwater collections just under $150,000. So you need to raise rates to generate an additional $245,000, or an increase there of $4.85, and that would leave the rate per EDU of $7.85. Yes.
So question. So we currently, our citizens are paying $3
Yep, per EDU.
per EDU. So then we're talking about a major increase across the board.
Yes, it would be percentage-wise. It would be under either alternative. You're looking at a high percentage-wise. As you can see, the more that you do, the quicker you do the project, and the more that you do with cash on hand trying to generate that, that's going to raise the rate. Spreading it out over a 20-year period is the lowest alternative there. Looking at a financing.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Even with the bond-funded one as well, if you were to look at that, that would be the overall increase that you would need to support the debt. You could look at doing that phased in likely over 2 or 3 years, depending on how you would go about and structure the debt. So in that situation, you're looking at maybe $2, $1 as your increases over the next 3 years. So that could be phased in a little bit. With the other two alternatives, you're really going to have to start generating that revenue day one, unless you're going to spend less potentially in year 1 and 2 and spend a little bit more in future years. But that would have the overall rate at the end a little higher, or your project would have to go out another year or 2 to have it completed.
Anything else from Mitchell? Anything else, Mitchell?
I have one more report, the sewer report.
Yep.
So again, I'll start on page 2, looking at the historical financial statements of the sewage works. What we've seen here with the sewage works in the last year or 2, we've seen a decline in the cash balances. If you recall, there's an outstanding loan now from the rainy day fund that was helping make some of the capital improvements that were needed on the system. And over the next several months, you're paying back to the general fund so that you're making it whole. So part of that is then, and you'll see as we go to the revenue requirements later in the report, not only trying to catch up with current operations, having money set aside so that you can do some of those capital improvements from sewer, but also being able to build up the funds for future, not only operation and maintenance, but future capital needs of the sewage works.
Mitchell, if I could interject, that
Yeah.
loan is paid back now.
So it's paid back
Yeah,
now.
that is paid back.
Okay. So I do want to first go and look at just comparable rates for other Indiana communities. Edinburgh here is shown in the green bar here. And this is looking at a bill for 4,000 gallons. And that's, if you were going to do an SRF financing, they're going to look at 4,000 gallons and compare to other communities. Currently, for a sewer bill, 4,000 gallons, for the town, it's $41.14. That rate was last adjusted in 2016. So rates have been held constant since 2016. You can see there, compared to these communities that we're showing here, Columbus, Mooresville, Bloomington, Ellisville, Martinsville, Bargersville, Indianapolis, you're currently on the low end for user rates. One thing I always want to tell communities, again, this is a graph that's constantly moving. A lot of these communities are looking at their rates at the same time. So a lot of these may be going up as well at the same time. There is potentially going up on this graph too. One thing to note is that the sewage works currently does not have any bonds outstanding like the water utility does. Those bonds were recently paid off. So this page here is the comparison of fund balances with minimum balances recommended. If we had bonds outstanding, this would really be a requirement of your bond ordinance. So right now, without having debt outstanding, this is just a recommendation. But this is what the same requirements would be if you did have debt outstanding. So as of the end of 2024, you can see total cash balance for the sewage works was $884,000. One thing to note is in the depreciation fund, this is really bolstered up by that rainy day loan. So the $427,000 was propped up from that rainy day loan that has since been paid back. The minimum recommendations for your operating fund is to have at least 2 months. As of the end of 24, you had $387,000. The minimum balance would be a little over $222,000. The thought there was if anything were to happen, you have at least 2 months to pay for operations. And the normal process for getting rates in place is going to take a minimum of 2 months. So that's really when communities are at or below that amount, they really need to start looking at rates. For your depreciation fund, that's paying for more of your capital improvements for the sewage works. A couple different ways to look at it there. You can look at it either if you have a capital improvement plan, what's the average amount you would spend for capital improvements, or you could also look at it on a depreciation basis. Looking at it here, we had the capital improvement about $296,000. With that rainy day loan, you had $427,000. So you were over at that point, but again, that was money that was getting paid back. move ahead to the capital improvement plan, very similar to what we saw on the stormwater utility. This is really going to be the biggest driver that we're going to see when we look at the revenue requirements later. So we have a capital improvement plan starting in 2025 through 2029. You can see there the total in the far right column over this 5-year period is a little over $25 million of projects. The biggest need being there, well, the biggest early need shown in 2026 is the wastewater treatment plant equipment replacement. The estimated cost there was $11.6 million. We also have improvements for lift station improvements of $500,000 in 26. We have an annual allowance for infrastructure upgrades. It starts at $175,000 in 2025, $200,000 in 26, and then $375,000 for 27 through 29. In later years, in 2029, some of the larger improvements we have there is the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. That's currently, the estimate there is $10 million. And then you also have the 800 North line upgrade of $1.5 million. So you'll see there in 2026, what we'll show later on in the revenue requirements, because of the size of the $11.6 million project, we're assuming a bond would need to be issued to do the equipment replacement upgrades. As we saw with the stormwater utility, the other option would be trying to cash fund that. The issue there being that you'd have to exponentially raise sewer rates to be able to generate enough cash to pay for $11.6 million. So due to that reason, we haven't shown that option in this report. If the council wanted to see that, we can certainly show it. I think the rate increase is just going to be too much for customers to handle trying to generate that much cash. So on average, you can see this 5-year plan. So when we look at the rates generated for sewer, we'll have an allowance for operation and maintenance. We'll have the proposed debt service, and then we'll have a line item that's average annual capital improvements, $296,000. That's money that you would generate through your rates and charges and be able to pay for ongoing capital improvements outside of what would be funded through a proposed bond issue. The next page then looks at the operation and maintenance disbursements of the sewage works. So in contrast to what we saw in the stormwater, there are several operation and maintenance costs going through the sewage works on an annual basis, including your payroll, benefits, power, chemicals, contractual services. For this 12-month period, the total amount was $1,287,000. We then made adjustments to payroll and benefits to account for annual increases and increases in those costs. And then we also added an inflationary allowance, knowing that we want to have these rates in place for 1 year, but to be able to support the utility going forward. So in the rates and charges for 2026, the starting amount that we build into operation and maintenance is $1,376,000. I'm going to move ahead to the rate replacements or the revenue requirements, shown on page 11. So again, as I talked about on the capital improvement plan, what we're showing here is funding the entire capital improvement plan. The biggest projects in 26 will be done through the issuance of debt. Again, we're assuming a bond issue for 20 years at 4.5%. The first column, we're showing it as current operations, and this is really just a proposed rate increase to support your operations today. Phases 1, 2, and 3 then would be the implementation of the bond issue. And due to the size of this, we're looking to phase that in over multiple years to try to have a more palatable increase for sewer customers. So for current operations, we were building in an operation and maintenance allowance of $1,376,000. We had the repayment of the rainy day loan of $255,000. That's since been paid. We can certainly rerun this and remove that from the calculations. We have an allowance for replacements and improvements of $286,000. We then deduct out some of your reoccurring revenues that are not subject to increase. So interest income that you receive and then miscellaneous income. So the net revenue requirements that would need to be generated through sewer charges for your customers would be $1,826,000 or $1,828,000. The sewer currently collects 1,617,000. So under current operations, we'd have a gap of 210,000. An additional 210,000 in revenues would be a 13% increase, or an increase for an average user bill of $5.34. So then in the next three columns, the only change we're doing here is increasing your operation and maintenance costs for an annual inflationary allowance, knowing that your benefits, payroll, materials and supplies are constantly going up over time. And then we've phased in the proposed debt service on the financing that would be used to pay for that larger capital improvements that we saw on the CIP earlier. So under phase one, we'd have operation and maintenance allowance of 1,418,000. We would have interest only on the bond in phase one of 560,000. We'd have a debt service reserve that would need to be funded, 112,000. And then a replacements and improvement allowance to have cash to pay for some of the cash funded capital improvement projects of 140,000 in the first year. And that builds up to 188,000 at the end. For phase one, net annual revenue requirements after deducting out interest income and miscellaneous income, you would need 2,141,000. Assuming the current operations, that increase were adopted and you were recovering those revenues, you would have 1,828,000 in sewer collections. So you'd have a gap under phase one of 312,000, or an additional 17% increase, which would be $7.96. Phase two, again, increasing your operation and maintenance costs. And you'll see here we've increased, in order to help phase in the rates, we've increased the replacements and improvement allowance to 380,000 under phase two. At the bottom there, assuming both the current operations and phase one were adopted, implemented, and billed, the gap under phase two would be 282,000, or an increase of 13%, another $7.19. And under phase three, we have the full implementation of the debt service. So that's both principal and interest would begin to be paid in 2028. So you can see there under the proposed bonds, 957,000. The net revenue requirements to support the increase in operations, the payment on the bonds, the debt service reserve, and an annual allowance for replacements and improvements. You can see there the net annual revenue requirements after deducting out interest income and miscellaneous income would be 2,751,000. Assuming the increases from the prior phases, you'd have 2,423,000. So the final phase would be setting rates to recover an additional 327,000, or an additional 14% increase of $8.34. So again, as noted, really the biggest driver here is going to be trying to address the capital improvement plan, really the $11.6 million for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and trying to find a way to phase that in over multiple years if possible to try to limit the rate impact all at one time. Question there?
So we had spoke with Driftwood Utilities about possible, could that help offset some of the cost to the taxpayer?
It would.
We don't know what that number looks like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it certainly would, assuming what we'd want to do is get, like you said, an estimated amount of their flow that you'd be treating. We'd figure out what the additional revenues you generate from that. We'd also want to look at what could potentially see an increase. So a lot of times your variable costs like chemicals will go up, maybe materials and supplies. So we'd factor that into the calculations, but assuming you are generating a decent amount of revenue, that will have an effect on this.
could we also, and it may not be a question you would know, could we also pass some of the cost of the stormwater onto their, I mean, I guess that could be, that's a discussion we would have, but could it also be offset a little bit too?
Not, and this is more of a legal question, but typically stormwater is only going to be charged to inside a city or town customers. It's not going to be borne by those outside of the city or town.
Trying to figure out a way around.
Yeah. Because most likely they're going to have a line that runs into your
Dedicated.
separate
Yeah.
separate from your stormwater system, so they're not going to be contributing to those costs.
Any other questions for Mitchell?
I'd just like to note that our tax rate's going down 0.09%, which should help offset this a little bit to the taxpayers.
We're also looking at SB 1, 2, another deficit.
Increases here.
So that's why I wanted to entertain the idea with Driftwood to see if it was even possible to help offset some costs. All right, thank you, Mitchell.
Yes, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
If it's a combined system, could you?
It's a good question, Mitchell. If theirs is a combined system of wastewater and stormwater,
It would go, it would get calculated the way we would charge them sewer.
okay,
It would just offset sewer.
Okay. I see. All right, pick up other business here. Sherry, anything else?
No, looking forward to this weekend. The holiday lights and the wreaths across America.
Nothing else,
John?
I spoke with the postmaster. They have averaged at least 2 trucks a day dropping off or picking up now. And we're part of a route. They don't just come here. They have other stops. They stop on the way. That's why they have a semi. He said it'd be very difficult for them to get in off of Walnut Street. But he was going to check with the downtown transportation and everything. I thought he'd get back with me today, but he hasn't. And I spoke to him last week. And I've been up and down that alley, I don't know how many times here in the last month or so. It's in decent shape. I've seen the semis come in 2 at a time. They don't have a problem, don't come close. I don't know if it's really an issue or not.
I don't think semis need to be on alleys, but that's just my take on it. They're not designed for it. They're absolutely not designed for that kind of weight. The underlayment, everything is not. So, Sean, if you want to jump in on that, we don't build an alley for that type of traffic. Never have. I don't think it needs to be closed. That's not what we ever intended here. The intention was just to get semi-traffic off of an alley. So, how the post office conducts its business through trucks is not the town's problem as far as I'm concerned. So if we tell them we don't want them going up and down an alley, that should be, we wouldn't want webs driving log semis up and down alleys. So I'm standing by my decision is to keep the semis off the alleys. This isn't something we've not tried attempting to talk to the postmaster before. We have. Chief's tried reaching out to him. We've had previous town managers try to reach out to him, and they don't want to work with us. So that's my stance on it. It's just my opinion for what it's worth. But eventually, it will get tore up because it is not designed for semi-traffic. We don't build those for that. You changed the verbiage in that to just basically tractor and trailer, right? So, I don't, was it scheduled to be put on?
It just was not on this agenda, but it's ready to go if you approve that. Yeah, I've just given an update. It's not on here.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll reevaluate it when it comes up on the next resolution. Because I don't know where that stops and starts at. So that's the,
Well, they rolled their paving before last, they just cut off, John, right there at the beginning, or right there at the edge.
Of the alley that goes north and south.
Mhm.
But they did pave the alley east of between their building and then Lions Club. Because that is an alley that goes all the way through. But they paved that portion of it.
so they paved the town street or town alley.
Because it's split. Yeah, the parking on because they own the south side by the Lions Club.
So did they pave east all the way west to Main Street?
No, just to the alley that runs north and south. They milled it and repaved it.
All right, thanks, John. Dustin, do you have anything?
Nope.
Do you have anything else, John? I'm
No,
sorry.
sir.
Rhonda?
I'm working on updating the 2026 fee schedule. Hopefully I'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Chief Little?
And again, Shell and First Financial, and really all of the communities help support the Kenai project. And it's huge to see the community come together. I can tell you that First Financial got really substantive festival, that they raised that money, not only with some sales of some food, but a lot of time and hours in that thing. Sunny, Michelle, I think that has always been really, so we just appreciate the support.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Waller?
I don't have anything.
Wayne?
Nothing, thank you.
Daniel?
Yeah, holiday lights was mentioned. With the temperatures that we have coming this Saturday, we are concerned with safety of having the event outside. So we've been looking at the possibility of moving some of those activities over to our elementary school. So just down the street, it'll give us the opportunity to still have the market, the reindeer games, and Santa to sit on the lap, but it gets everybody out of the cold. We're looking at potentially single-digit temperatures at that time of night. So before we make that move, I just wanted to make sure council was okay with that and didn't have any questions. We hate it. We like, yeah, that's how that originated, was because of temperatures and that weather, but just wanted to run that by you all before we made that official change. Hopefully next year we'll see better temperatures and the plaza will be in place and we'll be able to have all the fun reindeer games outside again.
I don't think you have a choice.
No. So you all are okay with that then? Okay, all right. And then I did want to brag on my team. I don't know if you've seen some of the updated decorations, but especially at the mound, they've all got the new rope lighting and all the season greeting signs. And when we can get more rope lights in, we're going to go through into the rest of them as well. But making some headway.
They are looking good.
Thank you.
Stan?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited after some months of hard work, pushing forward here to reach across America. I'm really excited. Everybody knows tonight that the truck arrived today with the wreath. It's very emotional to see it go in with the wreath on the front. All the pictures of the soldiers on the truck, with the video floating around on Facebook. It's very emotional, to say the least. Pretty excited to announce the fact that we're going to have a total of 8 sergeants. Master Sergeant from the U.S. Army, First Class Sergeant from the Marine Corps, First Class Sergeant from the Navy, First Class Sergeant from the Air Force, Sergeant First Class from the U.S. Space Force, Staff Sergeant from the Coast Guard, Staff Sergeant from the U.S. Merchant Marines, Staff Sergeant from the Prisoners of War and Missing in Action, which I'm very emotional about. The way that stuff is very emotional as well. There's one over on the truck. We shall never forget. We're on the flag with the pole there to the cemetery for the people that use their knives. Excited for that. It's just been one day. I know it's going to be cold. I hope everybody can come out. I have at least 2 local news medias coming out from 13 and 59 to cover, plus local papers from soldiers from the 157th Infantry Brigade and coming out to face wreath in person. So really excited about that. It's been a lot of work, a lot of loose ends. It's trying to start to come together. It's been working on last week, but just hoping for good weather over the cold. And really excited for that. So I hope everybody can come out and participate in at least in the ceremony. I think it's like I said, after seeing the truck today, it was very emotional to see so many pictures of faces on the side of the truck. But talking to the truck driver, how many wreaths and deliver, I think 2,490,000 wreaths to deliver across America. Just puts it all in perspective against the fact that the truck is still on the wreaths and boxes. We are doing that. I'm very honored and thankful for your support and all my staff here in town.
Bob? Thank you, Bob. Sarah Beth?
Building is coming down, so it's been nice to see the wrecking ball coming through last week. So I think he anticipated about 8 dumpsters to get the building down, and I think they've had 4 now, so just about halfway through. So hopefully we'll be done by the end of this week. Yeah, and as Daniel talked about Holiday of Life, so I've got everything communicated, press releases and information to all of our vendors will go out tomorrow morning to let the public know. There's been a lot of promotion through our local tourism agency, so we'll try to get the word out as much as possible about the changes. I know my fellow Presbyterians are here. The chili peppers still at the church, so come in and get a hot bowl of chili at the Presbyterian church beforehand, and then, yeah, we'll have everything going on at the elementary school.
Thank you, Sarah Beth.
Yeah.
Julie?
Just one thing for the council, I've been working on the ordinances in the new software, and one of them is a tree ordinance that I think the council passed to get a grant from years ago. And I don't think it's applicable any longer, and so with council's permission, I'd like to send the changes to Dustin and have them amend that, and some provisions that give the town some extra liability that we run into in this summer, and I think things are good to keep on the books, so. Okay with that, I'll see you.
Don't see any reason why we
No, I
can't make a motion for that.
motion to have Council Attorney Huddleston amend the tree ordinance.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Julie. Open up for public comment if there are any. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Hello, Council. I'm Christina Riley. I live at 701 South Holland Street here in Edinburgh. And I am here for the Holiday of Lights. Specifically, I want to invite you all to come. I want you to understand what the town has done. We are adding the reindeer games. We have had many, many people work in actually building and painting and doing all of the wonderful things to bring these games together. We've had probably 30 community members donate items for the games, for prizes. We've had thousands of dollars in products donated so that we can come and have this wonderful event for the kids. I think it's important that the town council knows the community. Maybe sometimes you don't always get to see that or hear that, but every day for 2 months I'd come home and there'd be a new package on my porch where people would donate it for prizes or games or whatever we needed to make this to come to life. This is going to be a free event for kids to do. There's no charge for them, so it just adds to our Holiday of Lights and makes it even better. I want to give a thank you to the committee. So Daniel, Sarah Beth, Haley Roberts, Morgan Carlton, they're all meeting constantly and helping make this come to life. And I think it's really important. The town employees that volunteer their time, I just want to say thank you publicly to them. And then invite you guys. So we're excited. I know moving it to East Side is not what we wanted to do, but at least we're able to still do this and have a wonderful time. And I just really wanted to let you know that the community is really supporting this Holiday of Lights. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Claus.
Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.